We must now explain that in the sitting room on the left hand as you go in, there stands against the wall a high glass-fronted cupboard where all the children's Christmas presents are yearly put away to be kept. Louise, the elder sister, was still quite little when her father had this cupboard constructed by a very skillful workman, who had put in it such transparent panes of glass, and altogether made the whole affair so splendid that the things, when inside it, looked almost more shining and lovely than when one had them actually in one's hands. And the upper shelves there were, which were beyond the reach of Fritz and Marie, were stowed Godpapa Drosselmeyer's works of art. Immediately under them was the shelf for the picture books. Fritz and Marie were allowed to do what they liked with the two lower shelves, but it was always came about that the lowest one of all was where Marie put her dolls as their place of residence, while Fritz utilized the shelf above this as cantonments for his troops, so that on the evening about which we are speaking, Fritz had quartered his hussars in the upper shelf of these two. Marie had put Miss Gertrude rather in a corner, established her new doll in the well-appointed chamber there, with all its appropriate furniture, and invited herself to tea and cakes with her. This chamber was splendidly furnished, everything on a first-rate scale, and in good and admirable style, as I've already said. I don't know if you, my observant reader, have the satisfaction of possessing an equally well-appointed room for your dolls, a little beautifully flowered sofa, a number of the most charming little chairs, a nice little tea table, and, above all, a beautiful little white bed, where your pretty dollies of dolls go to sleep. All this was in a corner of the shelf, the walls of which in this part had beautiful little pictures hanging on them. And you may well imagine that in such a delightful chamber as this, the new doll, whose name, as Marie had discovered, was Miss Clara, thought herself extremely comfortably settled and remarkably well off. It was getting very late. Not so very far from midnight, indeed, before the children could tear themselves away from all these Yuletide fascinations, and Godpapa Drosselmeyer had been gone a considerable time. They remained riveted beside the glass cupboard, although their mother several times reminded them that it was long after bedtime. "Yes," said Fritz, "I know well enough that these poor fellows," meaning his hussars, "are tired enough and awfully anxious to turn in for the night, though as long as I'm here, not a man jack of them dares to nod his head." With which he went off, but Marie earnestly begged for just a little longer, saying she had such a number of things to see to, and promising that as soon as she had them all settled, she would go to bed at once. Marie was a very good, reasonable child, and therefore her mother allowed her to remain a little longer with the toys, but lest she should be too much occupied with the new doll and the other playthings, and would forget to put out the candles, which were lighted all around on the wall sconces, she herself put all of them out, leaving merely the lamp which hung from the ceiling to give a soft and pleasant light. "Come to bed soon, Marie, or you'll never be up in time in the morning," cried her mother as she went away into the bedroom. As soon as Marie was alone, she set rapidly to work to do what she wanted most to do, which, though she scarcely knew why, she somehow did not like to see about in her mother's presence. She had been holding Nutcracker, wrapped in the handkerchief, carefully in her arms all this time, and she now laid him softly down on the table, gently unrolled the handkerchief, and examined his wounds. Nutcracker was very pale, but at the same time he was smiling with a melancholy and pathetic kindliness which went straight to Marie's heart. "Oh, my darling little Nutcracker," said she very softly, "don't you be vexed because Brother Fritz has hurt you so. He didn't mean it, you know. He's only a little bit hardened with his soldiering and that, but he's a good, nice boy, I assure you. I'll take the greatest care of you and nurse you till you're quite better and happy again. And your teeth shall be put in again for you, and your shoulders set right. Godpapa Drosselmeyer will see to that. He knows how to do things of that kind." Marie could not finish, and what she was going to say, because at the mention of Godpapa Drosselmeyer, friend Nutcracker made a most horrible, ugly face. A sort of sharp green sparkle seemed to dart out of his eyes. Oh, this was only for an instant, however, and just as Marie was going to be terribly frightened, she found that she was looking at the very same nice, kindly face, with a pathetic smile which she had seen before, and she saw plainly that it was nothing but some draught of air making the lamp flicker that had seemed to produce the change. "Well," she said, "I certainly am a silly girl to be so easily frightened and think that a wooden doll could make faces at me. Oh, but I'm too fond, really, of Nutcracker, because he's so funny and so kind and nice. And so he must be taken the greatest care of and properly nursed till he's well." With which she took him in her arms again, approached the cupboard, and kneeling down beside it, said to her new doll, "I'm going to ask a favor of you, Miss Clara, that you will give up your bed to this poor, sick, wounded Nutcracker, and make yourself as comfortable as you can on the sofa here. Remember that you're well and strong yourself, or you wouldn't have such a fat red cheek. And there are very few dolls who have as comfortable a sofa as this to lie upon." Miss Clara, in her Christmas full dress, looked very grand and disdainful, and said not so much as boo. "Very well," said Marie. "Why should I make such a fuss and stand on any ceremony?" Took the bed, moved it forward, laid a Nutcracker carefully and tenderly down on it, wrapped another pretty ribbon taken from her own dress about his hurt shoulder, and drew the bedclothes up to his nose. "But he shan't stay with that nasty Clara," she said, and moved the bed, with Nutcracker in it, to the upper shelf, so that it was placed near the village in which Fritz's hussars had their cantonments. She closed the cupboard and was moving away to go to bed when, listen, children, there began a slow, soft rustling and rattling and a sort of whispering noise all round, in all directions, from all quarters of the room, behind the stove, under the chairs, behind the cupboards. The clock on the wall warned louder and louder, but could not strike. Marie looked at it and saw that the big gilt owl, which was on the top of it, had drooped its wings so that they had covered the whole of the clock, and had stretched its cat-like head with a crooked beak a long way forward, and the warning kept growing louder and louder with distinct words. "Clocks, clocks, stop ticking. No sound but cautious warning. Mouse King's ears are fine. Blah, blah, only sing boom, boom. Sing the olden song of doom. Blah, blah, boom, blah. alarm, boom, bells go chime, soon rings out the fated time. And then came boom, 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 quite hoarsely and smothered 12 times. Marie grew terribly frightened and was going to rush away as best she could when she noticed that Godpapa Drosselmeyer was up on the top of the clock instead of the owl, with his yellow coattails hanging down on both sides like wings. But she manned herself and called out in a loud voice of anguish, "Godpapa! Godpapa! What are you doing up there for? Come down to me! Don't frighten me so terribly, you naughty, naughty Godpapa Drosselmeyer!"